What up, Seastronauts? Sky here with you. The rest of the Soul Seed boys will be joining me on this adventure for the More Than Music podcast. Very excited to bring you the first episode on this adventure that we've been working on for a very long time and are so excited to launch to you. Today on the first episode, I've got my boys Mikey and Magic here with me, and we're going to be talking about what this podcast is going to be about, what our intentions are with this podcast, and we're going to get into more of the deep dives, and we'll see what the guys have to bring. Let's have some fun.
Welcome to the More Than Music podcast, hosted by us, Soul Seed. We'll be sharing tour stories, lyric breakdowns, and insights into our approach to music, the art, as well as the business. We'll also be interviewing some of the friends and family we've made throughout the years in the spirit of sharing their many marvelous trials and triumphs. So get comfortable and join us as we explore more than music.
What's up, everybody? Thanks for joining us for the first episode of the More Than Music podcast, hosted by yours truly, Soul Seed. This has been a long time coming. I am your host for today, I guess. My name is Sky. You better know me on stage as the didgeridoo guy, the rapper guy, the hype man, if you will. I tend to play keys as well. And with me today, Mr. Michael Magic Sorensen and Mikey Lennon as well. I'm going to have the boys introduce themselves in just one second, but we are so excited to have you in for the first episode of More Than Music podcast. Kenny and Benny and other special guests will be joining us in the future. Today, basically, we're just going to run through what we expect on this podcast and what we intend to bring from it. So without any further ado, boys, what's up? It's a long time coming. We've been talking about this quite literally for years. And unfortunately, the pandemic and quarantine and everything else has forced our hand as a band. We have not played a show since March 1st, 2020. So more than a year, unfortunately. However, it has given us more time to do other things, which we will get into along this podcast. One of those is to put energy into this podcast, which we've actually been talking about doing for a handful of years. And now finally, because we've been so busy on the road over the last 7-8 years, really, this has finally given us time to, sit back, put a concept behind it, and actually dive into the idea. So first things first, gentlemen, how we doing? How you living through the quarantine? How is your families? How's the general health? Let's do a quick check-in here for the Seastronauts hanging out with us today on episode 1.
Yo, welcome to episode 1 of More Than Music, hosted by Soul Seed. Stoked to have everybody listening in. Stoked to be putting energy into this project and telling stories. It is true, we've lived quite a life in the last 10 years together, playing music and traveling, and have met some incredible people and are very excited to have these conversations and storytelling and bring you all a new perspective maybe to the band and to the world. And I'm very excited to hear some stories and tell some stories. Very stoked and just feeling healthy and happy. It is a hard time in the world with quarantine. I have been working through it full time, cooking. And so, wearing a mask, doing things to protect myself and others, and have not gotten sick, have been learning a lot about cooking and making 30-quart batches of soups and sauces and, noodle salads and potato salads and all different types of dishes and sauces and prep techniques. So I will probably have some episodes about cooking. We will also have all sorts of different episodes beyond just music. And it's going to be really exciting and fun. So thank you for tuning in.
Everybody loves food, right? I'm excited about that, man. Absolutely. Mikey, what have you been up to, brother?
Eating a lot of food. It's been really great.
Good segue, professional segue. I like
Thank
that.
Thank you. Yeah, life has been good, all things considered. Getting a lot of time to, focusing on family and focusing on, the hobbies and different things and making sure to keep music part of my my daily routine if I can. I'm super excited to do this podcast. I'm so excited to get to learn more about people that I've only had the honor of making their acquaintance. I'm so excited to ask people questions in a setting that allows me to ask unique questions that I might not otherwise be able to ask. So yeah, I think it's gonna be fun. I think it's gonna be a great opportunity for us to learn and for us to share the knowledge that we learn. And for me, that's what music has always been about, is sharing and having things shared with me. So I'm excited for more of that.
And as much as we've had such an honor, a privilege, and been blessed to travel the country a few times over, and even out to Hawaii, we've met some incredible individuals from all over the nation, and people from all over the world. And I am very much also looking forward to those conversations. And one thing that I've been a little bit disappointed with in all our travels is just the simple fact that we don't hang out with people very long. And that has nothing to do with us. It has nothing to do with them. It's just simply that we are on the road and we're moving so constantly that we're lucky if we hang out in a city for 2 or 3 days, let alone 4 or 5, or a long enough time to meet a group of people, hang out with them, and dive into their lives, which we love to do. And we have been very, again, very blessed to have people take us under their wing, take us on cool adventures, meet us, meet great people, take us to their shows and everything else, host us at their house and things. And again, we'll get into a lot of this on this podcast. But for me, one of the things I'm looking forward to the most on this podcast is, Mikey, you said it, talking to people more in depth. We have a lot of friends and a lot of extended family on our family tree throughout the Soul Seed crew. But unfortunately, we haven't talked to most of these people for an extended period of time to dive into deeper conversations. So I'm looking forward to having those individuals on here and getting to know them better and what form of life they live as well. So it's going to look and feel great. And we're going to have many, many, many incredible artists, incredible travelers, people who are frankly changing the world in all sorts of realms, teachers and people being taught, which is going to be a lot of fun. So looking forward to it. We have a lot to bring you. Again, Sky, Magic, and Mikey with you today. Kenny and Benny will be jumping on as often as they're able. We also have extended members of the Soul Seed family, if you're familiar, and we will get as many of those guys on as possible. And, these episodes are going to come at you either an individual of us interviewing somebody else. It could be 2 or 3 of us at a time. It could be the 3 of us having a conversation, or maybe some of the other guys talking about, backstories of Soul Seed. We're going to have tour stories, lyrical breakdowns, the approaches to the business side of being a musician, interviewing some of our friends and families from all over the country. So stay tuned for that and much more to come along here. Boys, I just want to kind of get some generic questions in here and kind of give the folks in this first episode a taste of what to expect moving forward on the podcast and what all of us individually intend to bring, and the intention behind what we are hoping as individuals to bring to the collective of the More Than Music podcast. So Magic, we'll start with you, man. We've got into it a little bit in the intro, but a little bit more on what do you enjoy about podcasts specifically? Podcasts are kind of an acquired taste. Not everybody loves podcasts. Some people only listen to podcasts. And certainly in the quarantine life, a lot of people have turned to podcasts for information one way or another, and maybe just need a break from music at some point. And being a band, it's kind of I have an interesting relationship with listening to music, which I'll get into in a minute. But Magic, for you, what do you enjoy about podcasts specifically, and what do you personally intend on bringing to More Than Music?
Yeah, absolutely. The podcasts that I like to listen to are mostly storytelling podcasts. I love to hear folklore, and I love to also hear about stories and characters in stories that I am maybe unfamiliar with or have heard before, but it's fun to hear someone else's take on it. I'm also excited to bring to this podcast my hobbies and people that I think have an interesting perspective on. Each one of us as a member in the band have different interests and different hobbies in our free time, and some of them overlap. And so I'm really excited to talk about cooking, talk about video game development or playing, talk about, our interests in music that maybe differ from each other and musicians that we have met along the way. So I think that we're going to have some really awesome stories and just try to keep interesting content and what makes people enjoy listening to a podcast, which is keeping you engaged and keeping you learning.
Mikey, how about you, brother?
Yeah, for me, I really love conversation podcasts. Different forms that can take. I really enjoy listening to people have interesting conversations about difficult topics. And when people can create an environment where everyone can kind of share their viewpoint, and it's not an echo chamber or whatever, right? I love having hearing two different sides, or whatever, multiple different sides, and kind of getting to learn a little bit more about an issue and get a more well-rounded view. I also really love, hearing people just talk about life experiences they've had. I'm really excited for our episodes where we get to go back through and, talk about things that have happened to us. I think there's a lot of joy that can come through that, and it's just so special to get to be like a hidden friend. Sometimes it feels like when you're listening to, people just like rehashing their lives. It's like you get to ride along with it. So I'm excited for that. And I'm also excited to talk to people who, maybe you see their name in the podcast title and you're like, why should I be interested in this person? They're just a regular Joe. And I think that there's a lot of beauty that can be found in the regular Joe, right? Like, I think that everybody has a really beautiful story. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's not surrounded in their accomplishments, it's surrounding the little moments in their life, and I'm excited to kind of dive into those things too. So,
and I think what's most beautiful about that statement, Mikey, is of course accomplishments are relative, right? I mean, sometimes finding a job, raising a kid by yourself, getting a new dog and having that be a part of your family, whatever it may be. I mean, look, booking a show outside of your hometown. Yeah. I mean, again, we're not going to get into it on this podcast, but that's something we're going to talk about is Soul Seed starting in Southern Oregon, Eugene. And then I remember some of the first shows we started having in the Pacific Northwest outside of town. Yeah. It was the biggest deal ever, you know, and eventually we turned into a nationally touring band for 5 years. But I remember those baby steps and they all became the next coolest thing in your life, one after another. So I appreciate that. I'm glad you said that. And I also am very much looking forward to talking with folks, again, a lot of our friends that we talk to often and get a deeper version of their story. And frankly, people that I've met around the country and I'm impressed by, I'm inspired by. I want to know more about them individually. And frankly, we're going to have them on so that hopefully everybody else can get some value out of that conversation as well. And, to Magic's point, all of us, I think what's made Soul Seed unique and what we find special internally as a group is that not only musically, but personally in our personal lives, all 5, 6, 7, 8 of us, depending on who you're talking about at any given time, we all come from different backgrounds, interests, hobbies, work preferences. Our partners are into different things. Some of us have kids, animals. I mean, we're from different places and our parents have interesting stories and all these things. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what each of us individually bring to the podcast, which is going to kind of reveal parts of our personality as well. And as the guys have already introduced some of what they want to bring on, I am a sports nerd outside of music. And if you only know me from Soul Seed, you may have no idea that I'm a sports nerd as well, but I grew up playing baseball and football for 15, 20 years. I still play adult softball. I run a fantasy football podcast and I'm just a sponge with sports knowledge. That's my thing. I know a lot about 40s baseball, which is strange, but that's kind of my jam. And so I'm also looking forward to bringing on obviously musicians, but people in the sports world, photographers, videographers, artists. Again, I have friends who are working on desalinization of the ocean, making saltwater, freshwater. I know engineer friends who are working on huge solar power opportunities to power entire cities, potentially with clean energy. And there's a lot of people, obviously, around the world and in this country and people that we have met at a show for 5 minutes that have a much deeper story that I personally, and I know the guys are excited to dive into on an individual level, but of course, share it with you all, Seedtronauts. So very much looking forward to that. And again, the other guys, when they pop on the podcast, will have their own flavor as well. So that's kind of just a dive into what we are trying to do individually, and what we like with podcasts themselves. What else are you guys looking forward to with this podcast in general? And what do you hope people get out of it kind of on a listener experience? You know, I mean, again, we have a lot of stories to share, but they're our stories, you know, and people don't always gravitate to someone else's story, right? And I'm excited to share our stories, especially as a band. I think some of them are quite entertaining, and I'm excited to share those. But what do you hope to bring to the listener? What do you hope the listener gets out of our podcast overall?
Yeah, I think it would be fun to have friends and fans kind of hear backstories and hear more into who we are and what our interests are, and even just like what our voices sound like. It's interesting how you come to kind of know someone when you listen to their podcast for a while. And also, yeah, having some good laughs, like sharing laughs with each other and memories, and then hopefully, entertaining people and just keeping them occupied and busy and entertained while they're enjoying the podcast and doing whatever they may be doing at the moment.
Yeah, agreed. Coming away feeling inspired and or entertained, or I think that's the beautiful thing about that style of just having a conversation is, we can talk about things that we've done as a band, and another person who's in the band will listen to that and be like, oh, I remember having something like that, right? You can commiserate there. And then people who've never played music a day in their lives can listen to it and be like, oh, how interesting how that's how it works. Yeah. So I don't know, it's a great opportunity to feel connected, either because you can relate or because you've never had that experience before, and it's cool to kind of get a little peek at it.
I am much looking forward to suggestions, and Magic touched on that quickly, but for those of you that maybe aren't Audible preferred listeners, we are on YouTube as well. So each one of these podcast episodes, there will be a video version of it on our YouTube page. You can check that out, Soul Seed Music on YouTube, and make sure to give a subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss any of the drops. But look, if you don't prefer podcasts in the earbuds, and you listen to, when you're going for a run, or you're taking the dog on a walk, or you're out for a drive, whatever it is, and you prefer music, no problem. We get hit up quite a bit in our DMs, and people send us messages of screenshots with them watching our music videos and things on the big screen in the TV in the living room, while maybe they're feeding the family dinner or cleaning the house or something. So if you're more of a visual learner and entertainer, then feel free to check us out on YouTube along with the podcast. We're trying to make it as accessible to everybody. And we also want to open the floor to guests that we are not yet aware of. And Magic, I'll let you touch on this a little bit, just kind of the idea of potentially taking suggestions.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I want everyone to, if they're enjoying the show, if they're enjoying Soul Seed as an entity, as ourselves, as personalities, or as musicians, to follow us on Soul Seed Music, send us messages through soulseedmusic@gmail.com. However they can find us and contact us to maybe give us suggestions or connect us to a friend of theirs or a family member, or someone that they think has a really interesting story to share that maybe no one's ever heard, or maybe someone who is really well known, but you think would be a really interesting episode and you want to hear our perspective on interviewing them, then please send us a message. Find us on our Seastronauts page. Through Facebook, you can find us and just send us a message, and we would love to interview these people that you may think would be interesting to hear from.
Absolutely. And Mikey, I know over the years, we do offer, if anyone's listening and unfamiliar, we do offer all of our lyrics to our songs on our website. So you can go to our website, soulseedmusic.com, and you can go search for our lyrics as you listen to one of our songs and read along to the lyrics if you don't yet know them. But Mikey, we've had many questions over the years and requests, frankly, for lyrical breakdowns. And again, I think something that makes us unique is that all of us produce lyrics on albums. Yeah. However, you are kind of the prolific lyricist front person, if we have one, it's you, in the group, and often get compliments on your lyrics, and your lyrics are very inspiring, as the rest of us tend to be as well. And I know that people have asked us about lyrical breakdowns. So what might kind of a teaser, you don't have to, you can pick a song now if you want to, or you don't have to, but kind of the idea of like, what might a lyrical breakdown look like to somebody? And again, we encourage you listening in, feel free to drop us a DM, or, even better yet, drop us a comment right here on the YouTube page so we can kind of dialogue those, and leave a comment of maybe your favorite Soul Seed song. And then also, if it's a different song, maybe a song that you enjoy, or maybe you're confused by, or you don't understand, and you want to know maybe the meaning behind the lyrics, whether it's Mikey or anybody else. We would love to deliver those best we can with the explanations. But Mikey, what might a lyrical breakdown look like?
Yeah, I mean, that would be a beautiful thing to do. And, I think it's really interesting to kind of look at everything surrounding the lyrics. For me, I write songs about what's going on in my mind, which is usually what's going on in my life, which is influenced with what's going on in the world, right? So some of my older songs have lyrics that don't match with my worldview now. And that's something that would be really fun to explore. Just, what was I thinking at the time? What were we all thinking at the time? Kind of starting wide and then zooming in, right? Like, well, what is the context of this song? And then, okay, now let's start going through the lines. Like, what does this line mean? And to be honest, sometimes it's fun to reflect on my own lyrics and think, like, what did I mean at the time? Because, we all write lyrics a little differently, but I think it's pretty common for most of us that there's a degree of freestyle that goes into our lyric writing process. Like a lot of the times I'll, like I said, think of something I want to write about, start with the music, and then just start singing, and then write down what I like. And in that way, sometimes my lyrics feel like I don't have full control over them in a weird way, right? I know what I'm trying to say. I know what my direction is. And then I try to let the words find their own way there. So, so it, probably be something like that. Let's start here. Let's zoom in. Let's reflect on it. I'll kind of share what my thoughts are about my lyrics, and obviously, like, most of our songs have more than just me, and so whoever else is on the song, we'll talk about what is each person's thing. But yeah, that'll be a lovely thing to do on our Soul Seed episodes, where we can kind of all get together and reflect what was going on in our lives, what was going on in the world, and what does our lyrics mean to each of us.
Love that. And of course, us being the More Than Music podcast, it's right there in the title. We are a band. We are music centered. We have been just so deep in the music world and mindset, and it has quite literally controlled our lives over the last 10 to 15 years. But we are all also very devoted to other things outside of music, and we're much looking forward to sharing those other hobbies with you as well. Magic, I'll put you on the spot here a little bit. We're talking about lyrical breakdowns. I know it's going to be popular. People already want to know a bunch of those. So again, if you have a lyric set, a phrase, a verse, a song overall that you want to hear, drop it in the comments here on YouTube. If you're on the podcast, feel free to shoot us a DM on Instagram at Soul Seed Music, or on Facebook at our Soul Seed page, and just let us know which one it is, and we'll get to as many as we can when we can. Magic, I'll put you on the spot a little bit, though. We're also going to be sharing a lot of tour stories. Now, we have quite a few. We were on the road for, 7 years, pretty much nonstop, but we were also producing music and playing 3-4 times a week locally and regionally throughout the Northwest for about 3 to 4 years before that. You can share one of our many tour stories now if you want, for an example, or just kind of what can folks maybe expect in sharing a tour story. And again, there's a lot of people who have reached out to us like, hey man, remember that one time in this town when we did this? And they tell us, and we're like, oh yeah, man, I do remember that one. Right. Or we went somewhere, we went on an awesome hike, or we hit a sunrise together, or we went scuba diving with turtles in Maui. Just incredible stories. So what is maybe, something that folks can look forward to when we start breaking down tour stories?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that we have lived a lot of life, and perspective is a fun and interesting thing. So I even believe that it'll kind of be like a game of telephone where, especially if we have like all five of us or more or less, each person will maybe remember things through their lens, or remember different parts of a story, or even have to kind of have their memory jogged a little bit. So I think that'll be a lot of fun. And it'll be interesting to kind of break it down and remember as we remember, if that makes sense. We'll be starting to tell a story, or someone will prompt something, and that will trigger even more laughter and more memories. And once you kind of unlock that door, you start to hear like, oh, well, when I was sitting at this end of the table, I saw it, like, I saw the whole thing go down, and I saw this. And I think it'll be really fun to see each of our perspectives on certain memories, and to also just dive into funny moments, maybe even sad moments at times, or life-altering moments, inspiring moments, things that kind of developed us as individuals and as a group. So I think it'll be fun to get into the backstory of who Soul Seed is, what Soul Seed was and is going to continue to be.
I can't wait for those, man, because there are a lot of funny moments, and those usually stand out, and I'm excited to share those. But on the real, there are some pretty heavy ones. I won't share too many right now. We'll save them, but I'm thinking of a handful that are flashing in my mind as we speak. And there's a lot of heavy moments, some sad moments, unfortunately, but ultimately moments that gave us the opportunity to grow as individuals and a group, and quite literally a band of brothers. And shout to our gals who have been on the road with us over the years as well. They know who they are, and we quite literally could not do everything that we do without the extra person, the extra help off stage. But just having that energy on the bus and elsewhere has been monumental to our progression and success. The final topic I'll kind of edge really quickly is we're also going to talk about the business of a musician and the business of us specifically as a band. If you're unfamiliar, again, I'm the didgeridoo rapper keys guy on stage. If you're unfamiliar, Magic is the drummer, also a lyricist, and Mikey is the front person, guitar and lead singer as well. If you're if you've only heard our music, maybe you haven't seen us live, or you're catching us on YouTube for the first time, putting a voice and a name to a face, that's who we are on stage. But off stage, we also have our own individual roles as well. And actually a fun episode I'm looking forward to is us sitting down like this and actually just kind of describing to the people who each of us have been off stage and behind the scenes over the years, because it's not just, call a venue, book a show, show up and play.
Yeah.
I wish it was that easy. There are so many other things. We need to find out where we're going to eat, where we're going to sleep, how to make posters, print the posters, send the posters out, get people there, social media posts, get merchandise together, the travel destinations, all these other things that go into a show that I don't think the common fan, if you're not in the scene, necessarily recognize. And we don't expect you to understand all that stuff, but I would love to explain it, because we do get a lot of questions over the years of like, how do you guys do what you do? Like even other bands that are just local or regional don't quite understand what it takes to get out of your hometown and out of your state to tour. And it's just a whole nother animal. So yeah. I'm excited to share our roles off stage. And a big part of that is going to be the business side of things. So my role, and we'll save the long talk for another time, but my role has been the band manager over the years, and for the most of the part, the booking agent as well. We have had help along the way, our good brother Alan Roper, of course, and some other help along the way from good friends, but primarily it's band management and all these other things. So I get questions personally on like, how do you guys route a tour? How do you decide where you're going to go? Where do you go during certain times of year? How do you decide not to play a show as much as you do to decide to play a show? How do you work out deals? How do you work out who plays first and second? Length of the set, the using backline, which means bands share some of the equipment to make the turnover quicker, working with promoters, working with booking agents. And there's just so many things behind the scenes that I'm excited to share. It's kind of on the behind the scenes nerd level, but I do know that a lot of people are interested on how we even show up at the gig. You come to see us at a show, you show up and we're there and we play music, you give a hug and you leave. That's what you experience. But there's 2 hours before that, 2 hours after that, and an 8-hour drive, most likely, before all that happened, that we do want to share with you. So some of the business behind the band and the brand over the years, I'm excited to share with you.
Yeah, I think that's going to be amazing. I mean, I remember when we were starting out, I had no idea about any of those things. I mean, when it was just, Magic and Benny and I, the idea of booking a show was like, how do you do that? I don't know. So it's, we've been blessed to meet so many people over the years, and they've bestowed their wisdom and knowledge upon us. And now it's going to be great to have opportunities to kind of share that. And like, whether you're, a musician who is trying to learn it for yourself because you want to go out and do it, or you're like just a person who listens to music and you're curious, like, what are they doing when I don't see them on stage to make this night happen? Yeah, I think that'll be fun. And, we'll mark those episodes so it's clear, you can look and see, oh, this is an episode about that. Hey, I don't care about that. I'm not going to listen. Or this is amazing. I can't wait to listen. Awesome.
Sure. And you could also just put them in your queue and bust out a handful of them. To be honest with you, I listen to like 4 or 5 podcasts a day of various things, while I'm doing work and other stuff, and to fill my brain with knowledge subconsciously. And I usually put it on time and a half or double speed when I listen to it. And it just kind of, blah, 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 but it rolls through, and I'm still able to absorb the knowledge, especially if it's something I'm not amazed by topic wise, but I still want to kind of hear the content. I can speed it up and kind of still ingest it best that I can.
Yeah.
All right, boys. Quite the intro for this podcast, man. We are jumping into this endeavor. And I remember one thing has kind of clicked with me since we started talking for real about this podcast. And I remember, and I want to share this story too. There's so many. 2013, Soul Seed had been a band for a few years. We played all over Eugene and the state of Oregon, a little bit of the Northwest. But in 2013, we decided as a band to jump in the ocean and see if we could swim, is basically what it was. And thankfully, we're still swimming. But there was a lot that came into that decision. At the time, half of us were going to school, like college. Half of us were working full time. Some of us were doing both. And it really came down to a decision of, is it really what we want to do to put all those things at jeopardy by leaving them and jumping on the bus to see where it could take us? And I don't think any of us expected for the next decade to be what it was. But I'm feeling that again now. I'm feeling that kind of enthusiasm of like, it's a new adventure. I'm kind of nervous. I'm kind of anxious. I'm kind of excited. I'm kind of scared. I'm like really thrilled to do this with you guys. And I've been wanting to do it for a long time. And I know that folks are excited out there to get it in. So thank you all for tuning into the first episode, kind of just a general template of what to expect moving forward. This is the first episode of the More Than Music podcast with yours truly, Soul Seed. And again, we're going to have one of us maybe host and have a guest. We'll have 2 or 3 of us with the guest. We might just have episodes along the way that's just us and no guests. So feel free to drop a link down here and give us a comment of maybe a special individual in your life or somebody that you're inspired by. Drop their name down, maybe a link to something that they do as well in case we're unfamiliar with them. We'd appreciate that. And we can get in touch with those individuals if we feel it's a good fit. We would love that. So do that in the YouTube comments here on the bottom. If you're on the screen, if you're on the podcast, reach out to us on social media at Soul Seed Music on Instagram or Soul Seed on Facebook. Either way, that would be helpful. Boys, before we sign off, any final comments, thoughts here, expressions before we get out of here on the first episode?
Yeah, I was just thinking it would be fun for us to all talk about what does More Than Music mean to us? Like, that's the name of the podcast. Why did we choose that? And what does that mean? So, I mean, I guess, Guy, do you want to give your thoughts on that first?
Yeah. So More Than Music, when I think about that, I mean, I take it just super literally, right? Like more than music. It's just music and then some. Magic mentioned a bunch of food episodes and guests earlier, and I got a little scrummy going on in my belly. I'm a guy that likes a full plate. I'll put it that way. You know what I'm saying? And a little extra never hurts. So for me, music has dominated my life in one way or another since I was a kid. I'm in my mid-30s, and for 30 years, I bet music has been a dominant fixture in my life. But sports has also been there. Working with youth has been a huge part of my life for over a decade. The environment as well. I went to college to be environmental specialist kind of thing. And there's just so many other things I'm interested in life, entrepreneurial work ethic in general, appreciating elders and what they have to share about their past experiences and all these things. So that's what I think of with more than music. Music is Soul Seed, and what we do behind the scenes and everything else. But more than music gives everybody an individual opportunity to express our own light within the sphere of Soul Seed, which brought everybody together and has given us this incredible blessing over the last decade plus. So more than music for me is just quite literally what it says. Music is the backbone, but we're going to be talking about a lot more than just music.
Yeah, absolutely. And, getting people involved in talks that maybe are hard, or talks that come from a spiritual place, or talks that, kind of push your boundaries of knowledge. And so I think it'll be fun to, talk to our musician friends and talk stories and talk the work of it all, but then also touching into what and who we are as humans and what we have to learn and share with each other and ourselves. So I just hope you keep tuning in and expect to hear a lot of different types of content, and be open to learn and share yourselves. Do please let us know how you feel about our episodes and what we can do differently, or who we can interview in the future. So I'm very excited to just sit down and share and reflect.
Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah. For me, it's just, I think of it as music is the thread that, connects us. It is going to be the thread that has introduced us to many of the people that are on our podcasts. It's kind of the central theme of our lives as Soul Seed, and of our adventures that we've got to have, across this country and even the world a little bit. So, so that's kind of how I think of it. It's like, that's the core, but we're branching out, right? We're going to talk about all sorts of stuff, and it's going to be awesome.
I'm very much looking forward to it. Listening right now, if you're on YouTube, before we sign off here, make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the bell so you don't miss any of the updates we have coming at you. But also, please write in the comments right now. Take a second here and let us know what more than music means to you, because it means something different to everybody. And again, you can take a literal approach like I did, or you can think kind of outside the box. So what in your life does more than music, the statement more than music, mean to you? And if you're on the podcast, again, hit us up with a DM, or please leave us a rate and review anywhere you're listening, and we can get those captions as well. And we will be sharing some of these on our social media to give shout outs as well as they come along. So boys, this is going to be an awesome adventure. I'm so looking forward to this. We got the rest of the crew coming in eventually. We got a lot of great guests already lined up. Some of the podcasts are in the works as we speak, and we're going to have a lot more developing. So once again, if you do have a great suggestion for us, you think they would be a great guest on our podcast, and they mesh with our vibe, you know what we're about, then please make sure to let us know in the YouTube section, or shoot us a DM on social medias as well. And otherwise, we hope you gain as much value as possible from the podcast. So very much looking forward to this, guys. Episode 1 in the books. We are officially underway. No turning back now. We're excited about this. We got a lot coming up from you, and we can't wait to give you more than music with us, Soul Seed. For my boys, Mikey Lennon and Magic, I'm Sky Guasco, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Toodles.
Love you.
Thanks for tuning into the More Than Music podcast. We appreciate it if you'd leave us an honest rating and review wherever you're listening to the podcast. And please also subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on all social media platforms at Soul Seed Music. That's at SOLSEED Music. For those that leave a 5-star rating and review, be sure to listen for your comments to be read on a future episode. Stay tuned for our next episode, and feel free to share this podcast with a friend or a family member, and let's expand the branches of our family tree. We appreciate you vibing with us today, and we'll catch you next time on More Than Music.